We got an injury date on Ja Morant that should put some people at ease. And also, you've seen a few Grizzlies offenses that have been really fast. We talked about the offense on yesterday, but I'm going to tell you why. This season, you're going to be watching the fastest offense in Memphis Grizzlies history. Stay tuned on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host today, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Thanking you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with me each and every single day. Today, I'm going solo without my co-host, Joe Mullinax, getting the day off. So you're here with me today, and you're also here with one of our sponsors, and that's Gametime. Today's episode is sponsored by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, we'd like to thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies on today and each and every day. Make sure you continue to tune in Locked On Grizzlies wherever you like to listen or wherever you like to watch. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you watch, like YouTube, wherever you listen, Locked On Grizzlies is available. So thank you guys for continuing to tune in with us. Make sure you continue to like, rate, comment, subscribe, and all those good things so we can deliver the good information for you and give you the good news of what's going on with the Memphis Grizzlies. Speaking of the good news, we got some good news on Ja Morant, but before you get to that specifically, a nice rundown for the show today. We're going to give an injury update on Ja. I'm going to talk about the offense. I know we talked about the offense on yesterday, like we did. But I also was at practice yesterday and kind of got some more detail on one specific area of the offense, and that's the pace, that's the speed. We're going to talk about some potentially historical things happening in Memphis with the offense this year. And then we're going to preview this game coming up against the Charlotte Hornets. It's preseason game number 2 for the Grizzlies, and it's against Charlotte Hornets. So we're going to preview that in the third segment. But we're going to start with the Ja Morant injury update. I know some people have been asking, and I think we mentioned it in the last episode, towards the end of the episode, and where I said, Ja Morant's fine. We'll get more clarity, more detail in practice the next day, which was yesterday. We get more detail on what the deal is there, and now we have it. Talking to Taylor Jenkins, the Grizzlies coach, after practice on yesterday, he kind of summed up the idea of the plan, I guess you could say, for Ja Morant going forward. Taylor Jenkins, here was his words. He basically said that we expect him to be ready for opening night against Utah, but we're going to be cautious over the next couple weeks. So Ja Morant is dealing with a mild ankle sprain, is the way that Taylor Jenkins put it. So they're going to be cautious. I think that's the big thing everybody wants to hear. They will be cautious with Ja Morant over the next 2 weeks. None of that is really surprising news, considering what we heard after the game from Ja, what we heard after the game from Taylor Jenkins after the game in Dallas, and the fact that it's the preseason, and the fact that he came back into that game and re-injured that ankle. That was like, if we didn't think we needed to be cautious before that, we definitely need to be cautious now, because the Grizzlies got to play the long game, man. Like these injury things, and you just can't you can't let them win. Like you gotta play the long game and try to take care of these guys. And at the end of the day, we're talking some preseason games that don't hold a bunch of meaning based on what the Grizzlies want to do this season. But there are a couple questions that are presented with the fact that, with this Ja Morant injury update. I'll start with this. I'll start with the fact that, one, from talking to Taylor, and I've tried to get a better gauge of the situation. One thing, Taylor Jenkins did not rule out Ja Morant for the entire preseason, nor was he asked. So he didn't say that Ja Morant will be back either, but he did not rule him out. He basically said, we will be cautious with him. I've been around Taylor Jenkins for a decent while. I think if Ja Morant was out for the preseason, he probably would have said it, but that's neither here nor there. We'll continue to have that conversation with him going forward, and I'll continue to update you guys as I know more. So I want to start there, but now I want to pivot to the idea of the question in hand. And I've seen some of you and your opinions I've seen people come up to me and say what they think, and people have commented, their thoughts as well. The question is now, when should Ja Morant's next game on the floor be for the Memphis Grizzlies? There are some people out there who are saying October 23rd, right? Opening night against the Utah Jazz. At this point in time, according to Taylor Jenkins and, the severity of this ankle injury, there is zero concern. There's very little concern. Taylor Jenkins said we expect Ja Morant to be available for open day. I'm telling you, there is no concern on the Grizzlies side about his potential availability for open day at this point. So, with all that being said, should Ja Morant play in another preseason game? Or should he just wait it out to the regular season? That's the question at hand. I think he should play at least one more preseason game. That's what I think. The Grizzlies have only played one preseason game so far. So you're going to have a preseason game coming up today against Charlotte Hornets. Then you get the Chicago Bulls on Saturday. Monday against the Pacers. I'm sure they're going to be resting players in between that stretch, 3 games and like a 5-day stretch. They'll be resting some guys over the course of that time. But then you get a long little break from Monday. Friday, October 18th is the Grizzlies' last preseason game. And Monday to Friday is a decent-sized break. So I'm thinking that game against the Miami Heat, the last game, is kind of going to be your dress rehearsal game. That's a game that's 9 days out. And you know what? If Ja Morant is able, if his ankle, he says, "Oh, my ankle feels good. There's nothing to worry about here." I want to see him play in that game. Not only Ja, but Jaren Jackson Jr. is doing some 1-on-0 stuff now, 1-on-1. And again, we'll know more about Jaren later, but right now, he's slowly working his way back. But if Jaren Jackson Jr., if we get to next week on this date, which would be October 17th, pretty much a day before the game, and Jaren Jackson Jr. is fine, I want to see him play one preseason game. It's one. At the end of the day, here's where I stand. This is kind of old school. Some of the old school people are going to feel this part probably a little bit more than the newer school people. But injuries are part of the game. So if you throw a guy out there in the last preseason game and he gets hurt, I'm not sure the coaches should take a bunch of slack for that. It's one preseason game. If guys get hurt in one preseason game, they probably weren't going to last 82 games over the regular season. Like, let's just be honest. There's only so much you can do in terms of protecting these guys, because 82-game season is grueling. It's long. Injuries will happen, nicks and bruises, all that will happen. But you can't approach this season from a hesitant standpoint. And now, I don't want to contradict myself here, because I am very much an advocate for the fact that I said it about the offense on yesterday. This thing's not going to be figured out in game 1, game 2, game 3, probably even in early November. Maybe even probably won't even be figured out by early December. But at the end of the day, it's a marathon. This is not a sprint. You can start the season 14-14 and end up with the number 1 seed if you take off. Like we've seen that happen a couple years ago with the Celtics. Remember, Jaylen Brown said the energy is about to shift in January. They were middle of the pack team. They took off. They ended up going to the finals that year against Golden State Warriors. So I'm saying all that to say where I stand on this is I believe that Ja Morant, Jaren potentially if he's able, but we'll stick with the Ja angle here, because there seems to be little to no concern about his availability come regular season time. If he can play that final preseason game, I want to see him on the floor with Dez. I want to see him on the floor with Marcus Smart. I want to see him on the floor with Zach Edey. It's a dress rehearsal. Yes, though, when they get out on the floor for the regular season games, they will have ample amount of time to build that up. I've said that. But if you're telling me he's fine, he's healthy, and he can play one preseason game, just one, I'm okay with that. I want him, because you got a rookie in your starting lineup. Like, this is you want to help Zach Edey out, get into that regular season slate to come from a comfortability standpoint. Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, conditioning wise, they're probably going to be there. But we have not seen a lot of reps of the Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart trio. I just want to see it a little bit more. I think it's perfectly fine for the Grizzlies to play him in one more preseason game. I will not be the guy if Ja Morant is completely healthy. Like, again, I want to emphasize that it has to be zero risk in terms of re-injuring that ankle. If he goes out there and re-injures the same ankle, I will have some words. But if he goes out there and you don't want to predict injuries or whatever, but if he goes out there and something puts his regular season play, his regular season debut for the season opener in jeopardy, and it's a finger injury or something like that, I don't think you can get on the Grizzlies or Taylor Jenkins for that, because that's basketball. Injuries are a part of the game. They happen. Every single team in the history of the game has dealt with injuries. You find a roster where 82 games are played by every single guy, you let me know, because I haven't seen one. But that's neither here nor there. I digress, as my partner Joe Monax likes to say. So we'll leave that there. That's where I stand on the Ja Morant update. So that's pretty much everything you have. Clear, mild sprain. I think he'll be fine. Now the only question remains is, will we see him again in preseason? Let me know what you guys think. I say I want to see him for one more game. Some people say, oh, just sit him out to October 23rd. If you're one of those people, or if you agree with me, let me know what you guys think, and we'll talk about that here on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we move on to our next option, we're talking about this Grizzlies offense, because that Grizzlies offense, I think, could be the fastest in franchise history. But again, before we get to that, we got one more thing to get to before that. And this episode is brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. Here's the thing about Gametime. Gametime is where I love to go get my picks and my tickets for some of the best live events that come to our city, Memphis, Tennessee. And Gametime has this new feature, right? And it's called Gametime Picks. And it makes getting tickets for your favorite live events easier than ever before. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Talk about the super deal, right? The super deal. Have you heard about the super deal? The super deal is a big proponent of this new thing at Gametime. But then there's more than the super deal, right? You get seat views before you buy. You get the lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. All these things come with you through Gametime. Gametime is where you go to take the guesswork out of buying tickets. All you got to do right now, go download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to take advantage for your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Coming up here next on Locked On Grizzlies, we got to talk about this Grizzlies offense. Could it be the fastest in franchise history? Stay tuned for that. Coming up here next on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies, everyone. And we got to talk about this Grizzlies offense. We got to talk about it one more time. I know you're saying, Damichael, we talked about the Grizzlies offense in the last episode, but I'm not about to talk about the whole offense. No, we're not doing that. We're talking about one specific area that we also mentioned in the last episode, and that is the speed, the pace that the Grizzlies are trying to play at. Let me put this in perspective for you while we're talking about this again. The Grizzlies, since I've been covering this team, playing fast has never been a problem to me. You're probably thinking the same thing. The Grizzlies have played fast. And if you're not thinking the same thing, let me give you some numbers. In the Taylor Jenkins era, here are the Grizzlies' rankings in the Taylor Jenkins era in fast break points per game. His first year. Oh, the Taylor Jenkins era, for some people who don't know, lines up with the Ja Morant era. So you call it the Kleiman, Jenkins, Morant era. Yeah. Anyways. Third, Ja Morant's rookie year in transition points per game. They jumped to first. This was the year they made the playoffs, went against the Utah Jazz the next season. First in the NBA in transition points per game. Then came the 56-win season, right? The breakout year, second round of the playoffs against the Warriors. First in the NBA in transition scoring again. Then there was the next season, won 50-plus games, play against the Lakers in the playoffs, lose. Second in the NBA in transition scoring. And then there was the injury-riddled year. Last in the NBA in transition scoring. So let's break that down a little bit quicker. Throw the injury-riddled year out there. They were last in the NBA that year. half those guys are gone. More than half those guys are gone. It was 33 guys on the roster that year. So the first 4 years under Taylor Jenkins, the Grizzlies were third in fast break scoring. First, second. Third, first, second. Top 3, 4 consecutive years. That was part of their identity. But Taylor Jenkins keeps saying, we want to play fast. We want to play fast. Pace. So we were at practice yesterday. And I'm thinking about it. I'm like, this isn't the old San Antonio Spurs offense. This is a team that has already played pretty fast. Like we call Desmond Bain downhill Des. Ja Morant, I mean, it's understood how quickly he gets up the floor. So what's this whole thing about playing fast? And I said, Taylor, you know, you've had some offenses that were top of the league in transition scoring. Are you saying you want to be even faster than those teams? Taylor Jenkins didn't hesitate. Yes. This team wants to be faster than 2020, 2021, and 2022. And 2023 for that matter. This team wants to be the fastest Grizzlies team offensively, in pace, frantically, in franchise history. I think they can do it. We talked about how in that first game, it looked out of control at times. But they also had 35 assists. It did look out of control at some, and that's going to come over the course of time. The understanding there of what it means to play fast. How do you play this fast? And I don't know where I am on the idea. Would love to hear what you guys think. Like, this is one of those things I have to see it a little bit more before I have a hard opinion on the idea of playing even faster than a team that already was the best over a 4-year stretch in transition scoring. That was the name of the game. When I used to go to the opposing locker rooms and talk to coaches before the game, you got to stop them in transition. They like to run. That's not going to catch anyone off guard that the Grizzlies want to play fast. This is not like, we talked about all the movement in the offense and things like that. That probably catches some teams off guard. That's something they'll have to adjust to a little bit more. The idea of the Grizzlies playing fast, that is not new. What is new is they're trying to shift into a whole nother gear. And they were already playing fast. So the next question for me in this process is, I always go back to this fact, like these dudes are humans. And when I say that, of course, we all know that. But at the same time, what I mean when I say that is they have energy bars. Like they get fatigued. I know they get fatigued because I'm in the locker room after the game and I see some of them huffing and puffing, talking about how tired they are, how their legs are and whatnot. So with all that being said, I'm thinking about it from, man, if I was in those shoes, if I'm getting up and down like that, it would affect my defense. And remember what I said when the Grizzlies made all these offensive changes and they went and got the new assistant coaches and things like that. I said, is this going to impact the defense in any way? Like, you never want to get too, and I'm not saying that the Grizzlies have, I want to make that clear, but you never want to get too happy on the form, as some people like to say. You never want to get too confident, like, the defense is going to be good. That's a given. The Grizzlies have always had top defenses. Close your eyes. We'll put out a top defense. You don't want to have that mindset, that mentality. I don't think they have that mindset, mentality. But the point that I'm making is you make all these changes catered around the offense. I asked Taylor Jenkins about that. I says, the defense going to still be where it was, right? And he said, yeah, there is, his words were, there is still corporate knowledge on the Grizzlies staff. That basically Patrick St. Andrews, he's heading the defense now. He's kind of like the defensive coordinator. Then, of course, you have Taylor Jenkins. And then, of course, you have the philosophies, the ideas. The ideas are, hey, we're taking away corner threes. Do not give these guys corner threes. We're giving them the long mid-range shots, and we're trying to take away everything at the rim. We're taking away everything at the rim. We're taking away the corner threes. If they hit some of those other tough contested shots or wide open shots in some of the longer parts of the floor that they traditionally players aren't good at shooting at, think like Ja Morant. Remember what he did game 1 against the Grizzlies a couple years ago? If players hit shots like those, you live with them. And that's kind of been the MO of the defense over the course of the years. But with this idea that they're going to play so fast offensively, so fast, guys are going to get tired. Remember, I always talk to Desmond Bane about this. He's the player who says it more than anybody else. I always say this. He says, Desmond Bane always says when Ja Morant is on the floor with him, it makes it easier for him to be that impact defender because he doesn't have to handle the ball as much. He doesn't have as much defensive attention on him. And he can basically conserve a little more energy on the offensive end and transition it over to the defensive end. Or he can basically use more energy defensively. So when he gets offensive end, he doesn't have to dribble the ball, dribble around the toughest defenders and get to the basket, spin move, reverse layups, and all that stuff. He can conserve energy a little bit. So the point that I'm making is I want to see over a longer period of time how fast this team is really going to play consistently, because there is the thought that, hey, if the Grizzlies are going to play as fast as they're talking about, they definitely should be playing a 10-man rotation. Like we talked about the idea Taylor Jenkins likes to play 9. If you're going to play as fast as they're talking about, man, you probably want to play 10. Because more guys are going to need a little bit of rest, and that's typically what the Grizzlies have done over the years. They rest their guys and whatnot. So that's kind of my idea for what that looks like. We'll see, overall the process behind that. Again, I think at the end of the day, this is something, it's going to take time. And it's not an easy thing to do. I think the Grizzlies have the right idea in terms of you want to make the offense better. You want to make the offense more efficient. You want to have more possessions than the opponent. So we'll see, how that transitions to defense. I think there is, again, guys are going to have to be really good conditioning around here with this Grizzlies team. Coming up last but not least on the show, we're going to break down the Grizzlies-Hornets preseason game number 2 for the Grizzlies, what to expect. And I got a couple things that I want to tell you guys as well as we get into that segment of the show. But before we get to that, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel right now because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view the live play-by-play, and you can do so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Me, personally, I like to make some same-game parlays or the same-game parlay plus, where you can take certain stats from one game, you can take certain stats from another game. You can say, hey, I'm predicting Josh Jacobs to run for 40 yards. I'm predicting Aaron Jones, the Minnesota Vikings are on a bye week this week, so you can't use Aaron Jones. But you can say, I'm predicting Devin Singletary of the New York Giants to get 40 yards this week. I'm predicting Jaden Daniels to throw for 200 yards. And you can combine those onto one ticket via a same-game parlay plus. And in order to use that, check this out. If you're new to FanDuel, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place your first $5 bet. All you got to do is bet $5, and you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Go check that out now over at FanDuel.com. Again, FanDuel.com is where you go to take advantage of these opportunities. Coming up here next on Locked On Grizzlies, we got to talk about the Grizzlies and the Hornets preseason matchup. Stay tuned for that. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies, everyone. I am Damichael Cole here with beat writer for the Commercial Appeal in Memphis, Tennessee. Grizzlies-Hornets preseason game 2. Let's get into it. So many things, that I'm looking for out of this game. So many things that a lot of us looking for. And I'll start with this. The main thing that I want to see is a lot of things that we saw, a lot of things that I want to see in game 1. I'm big on trends when it comes to basketball. Never too high, never too low off of one game. Like, there were a lot of things you could take away. You say, oh, Zach Edey's fouling too much. He's going to be in foul trouble all year long. Or, oh, my goodness, Marcus Smart didn't make a three-pointer. Or the Grizzlies had 23 turnovers. Or it could be something good. You can be saying, oh, wow, Jake LaRavia, 17 points, 14 assists. He's there. He's arrived. We don't know any of that yet. Everything that I just said cannot be proven over a bigger sample size, or as I like to think of them, as trends. So with all that being said, we want to see what type of trends continue to develop overall. But to get more specifically, one of the main things I'm going to look for early in the game, really before the game, when we talk to Taylor Jenkins, is who's going to get the start at point guard now. Ja Morant's unlikely to play. Again, they're going to be cautious with him over the next couple weeks. Ja Morant did not practice on yesterday. Taylor Jenkins has not straight up said that Ja isn't going to play, but he also didn't say that Ja would. And at the end of the day, Ja didn't practice on the previous day. He's not going to not practice and then play in preseason. But anyways, that's all besides the point. Who's going to start at point guard? Is it going to be Scotty Pippen Jr.? That seems like the obvious one. Is it going to be, you move Marcus Smart over and you put John Conchar in the lineup, or whoever the case may be? But I think you should start Scotty. Scotty Pippen Jr. should be the starting point guard in this game for the Memphis Grizzlies. And here's my reason. This is his dress rehearsal. Not for the regular season, but for the roster. This is Scotty Pippen Jr.'s dress rehearsal for the 15-man roster. Remember, my biggest question when it comes to the backup point guard position for the Grizzlies. The everydayers, you may remember this. Some of you will. Everybody, you don't have to be an everydayer to know how much I admire Scotty Pippen Jr.'s game. I love the dude's hustle. I love the two-way impact he comes in. He's ready to guard dudes. He can get hit in the mouth and get right back up. He can facilitate. He's shooting the ball well since he joined Memphis. And I love the story, too. Like, this is Scotty Pippen Jr. He's wearing the name of a 6-time NBA champion, but he still feels underrated. He goes to Vanderbilt and is an all-SEC performer. And it's like, I'm all-SEC. I'm Scotty Pippen Jr. I should be getting super hype, right? Nah, you go undrafted. Then you go to the South Bay Lakers, right? G League affiliate of the Los Angeles Lakers, arguably the most notable franchise in the NBA. And you're averaging over 20 points a game. It's the G League affiliate for the Los Angeles Lakers. Man, nobody's still fazed by it. Now you come to Memphis and you got a chance to make a name for yourself. And he has said these things. He said, as much about wearing that chip on his shoulder. This is his opportunity to show that he's deserving, because here's my other thing that everydayers will probably be familiar with me saying. I love Scotty Pippen Jr. as a point guard, as the backup point guard on this team. My one nitpicky thing was Ja Morant gets hurt or anything like the situation we're talking about right now, and Scotty Pippen Jr. has to step into the starting lineup. Can the Grizzlies win games? Can the Grizzlies go 2 weeks without Ja Morant, 7 missed games, 6 missed games, 7 missed games, and say, oh, we can go 4-3 in this stretch. Oh, we can go 3-4. Oh, we can go 5-2, but we ain't going 2-5. We're not going 1-6. We definitely ain't going 0-7. Can the Grizzlies have that approach with Scotty Pippen Jr. as the starting point guard? If the answer is yes, this man should be on the 15-man roster. This man should be the Grizzlies' backup point guard. If the answer is no, he should stay on a 2-way contract. If the answer is, I don't know yet, this is the game you should be glued up to watching Scotty Pippen Jr. play. I'm going to be right there, courtside, looking, taking my notes. Okay, good play right there by Scotty Pippen Jr. Yep. Okay, that's a bad pass right there. He's going to be on the floor with Desmond Bain. He's going to be on the floor with Marcus Smart. He's going to be on the floor with Santi Aldama. He's going to be on the floor with Zach Edey. I think that's a serviceable enough group to where we can determine if Scotty Pippen Jr. deserves. Well, not deserves, because I think he deserves it based on the way he's played through Summer League. But if he's the guy, I think that's still a question. I think the Grizzlies want Scotty Pippen Jr. to be the backup point guard, and it makes sense organically. Just easily throw the guy in there who's already on the roster, already has the respect of his teammates. But the one thing that we don't know yet. He's okay. Put him on the floor. Marcus Smart, Desmond Bain, Zach Edey, Santi Aldama. We'll see who plays for the Hornets. I'm not sure what that's going to look like for them. I know they played a couple nights ago as well. So LaMelo Ball actually played really well a couple nights ago. Not sure how many of those guys that we're going to see. I'm sure we'll find out tomorrow. Just make sure you keep track of all my coverage on X at Damichael C, or go over to the commercialappeal.com. I know everybody doesn't into the social media thing. That's cool. Just go to commercialappeal.com and you'll see everything, all the latest updates. I'll be there tomorrow for shoot around to be able to provide even more updates on the Grizzlies. Later today, I'll be there at shoot around to provide more updates on the Grizzlies and everything going on there as well. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. And then on tomorrow's episode, we'll break down everything that happened in the game. Thanks for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen today. Now for your second listen, find the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Become a fantasy basketball expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from our Josh Lloyd. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, make sure you're with us on tomorrow. It'll be just me again, and we'll be breaking down everything from this Grizzlies-Hornets game. I'm going to be looking at some defensive things. The Hornets got some talent over there. They don't got a lot of guys that you probably know a lot about yet, but they got some talent. I was watching those young dudes hoop the other day. Their first round pick played well. Trey Mann can hoop. There's a few more guys over there now. This is a notable one. We're going to learn some things about some of these Grizzlies players in this upcoming game. So I'm looking forward to that. But thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with us. Just remember that Locked On Grizzlies is free and available wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, I'm Damichael Cole, and we'll see you on Locked On Grizzlies.